Hello. And today is not a combo guide, a tier list, or play this character. Or trying to influence you in any shape or form. What we're doing, however, is a series of case studies on all characters in Dragon Ball FighterZ. And today, on this very hot day in London, we are covering Lord Zula the Great, Big Bula. Now, Frieza's older brother, at a glance when you first see this character, not only does he have a monstrous walk, but if you love to control the opponent cynically, Ravine can suddenly go in their face. And with combos where you're literally stamping on someone. So if he's gonna take stuff. Combos where he's literally stamping in someone and telling them that he's better than them. This is what you enjoy. Pure power then this character is for you. With long tails to catch opponents unawares. Easily going through fireballs and key blasts. DPs that you feel every hit, then Lord Zula the Great is for you. Now, as always in these case studies, we talk about characters in zones to make things a lot more easy to understand. So we have up close, mid range, and far. So these are the concepts that we use here. As it's more universal, it's easy to understand. And what we're going to go through is buttons on the floor in the air, supers, special, before we delve into win conditions and game plans that these characters typically may use. At a glance, only one or two that you may use if you're unsure where to go about. So let's begin. Now up close, Kula has it's 5L is -3. He can do 5L, 5L. He can't do 4L, 4L, but he's 2L, doesn't hit low, but he can do 2L, 2L. So at first glance, you think, oh, my opponent can crouch. He can stand the whole way. Kula's 5L, 5L is -7, so he can't just end his strings here. So it's a bit unsafe. His 2M is -9, but the range is ridiculous. So this is kind of Krula's main mid-range tool, so he can keep opponents really honest in the mid-range. 5M as well is a good mid-range tool, good punish for hitting people from far. So this is Kula, this is -7, so they're both -7, but primarily they're used from really far out. So not a lot of characters can engage Kula from this range. Kula's 5H, obviously being -7, and trails quite far. However, the cool thing about this is it goes into a little animation on hit. So here you can throw it out from as far as possible to him and it still connects. So Kula has the power to hit you from so far away. That is amazing. It's 2H, not one of the fastest, average 2H, but great range. Is obviously Kula's tall. So this is really good to throw out with Kula. So if you're unsure about end strings, you can do this with Kula as well. It's 6H, it being -5. So this is Kula's end. This is how Kula ends most of his strings. So this is -5. He can't do it. Obviously, you can't do 5H into 6H, but you can do 6H into 2H, like with most characters. So this is a good way for Kula if you're unsure of how to end. This is kind of the ender here. He's 6H. Now in the air, Kula has a great JM. This hits from so far out, so close. That if your opponent would try to 2H you, difference if I try to do this. Actually, I'll record it. So if your opponent tried to 2H, sorry. Your opponent, see that it didn't really hit there, so one more time. So some characters miss entirely, so he's not blocking, but some characters miss, say for instance, with shorter arms. They miss entirely. So it's something you have to be wary about when you are facing Kula. The long tail has this perks. He has a great jump L that Kula has, but he can anti super dashes with this, but Kula's got quite an array of options for that. Before we go into that, let's go into supers. Now supers, Kula has, aside from one of the coolest key charges in the game. Let's get some meter up. Kula's level 1 is probably my favorite level 1, one of my favorite level 1s. Kula runs towards you with reckless abandon and pins your face into the ground. That's the first one. In the air, he has this one in the air as well. So this is the air version. Cooler has a level 3. Cooler is level 3. On the floor is a counter. And in the air it turns into a grab. So if your opponent stays there, so if you see that right there, one more time. On the ground it's an actual grab. So if you jump and I'm in the air, sorry, so if you jump and do level 3, it's a grab. So you primarily use this in situations like that where you're trying to combo, or if you find some really cool scenarios and setups with certain characters, you could probably make your opponent really scared by doing something like this. And making your opponent really scared to either reflect. Let's just say if we put a situation where your opponent was trying to reflect. One more time. Let's do it one more time. So there we can really bait out the opponent doing that. So that's his supers. Now specials, Cooler has an array of specials. So let me try to speed through these as much as I can. Cooler's 2-1-4L. This stump move here on block. You see these are relatively fast. Nearly the same speed as the 6M, so it's the same speed as the 6M, so not impossible to react to. It's -4 the short one, +1 for the M1. It's a bit slower than a 6M, and 2v6H is obviously the same speed as a 6M. So this is +2. So he's one of the few guys in the game that can do a +2 move into a lot of damage. So you do have to watch out there. It's same speed as the 6M. So just with a bit of practice, you can react to it. Cooler also has 2-1-4L. So this is a kind of a DP or an invincible move. So this is invincible to air moves. So if my opponent wants to super dash, this will hit. However, if I do the M1, let's do it again. If I do the M1, M as well. So M has invincibility throughout, but L is kind of the one you use immediately. So M, it's not straight away, but that's versus the super dash anyway, that's different. And then you have the H version, which combines the best of them. How the cool thing about his DP, if you press LL, it goes behind. If you press whatever your input is, the next input, Cooler will throw them in that direction. So if it's M, it goes forward. L, it goes behind, no, regardless of the Dragon Punch you use. So that. And if you try to use H, he does that stop like that. Same for when you do it. He always throws behind when you do the H version. Now those are most of his specials. We do have his JS, Snitch Finger. Got the JS, one of the best kind of zone tools in the game. It recovers really fast. It really helps Cooler Dragon Punch or 2-1-4L people out the sky. He also has 2-1-4S. So as you know, but he doesn't really have a low here, but he does have 2-1-4S, which is really helpful. It is -14, so watch out. Ending strings with just this isn't the thing you really want to do. So a lot of opponents go for this. He also has 2-3-6S. So these are his safe vanish moves. So he throws like this as well. Yeah. So those are the majority of Cooler's specials that you kind of be using. Cooler also, speaking of air normals, I forgot about one of the most important air normals is Cooler's jump 2H. One of the funniest air normals, but you're going to be using this a lot in combos, so get used to it. Like I said, I can spend as much time as possible here going through specials and applications of them, but what we're here to talk about is the win conditions and the gamepad. And most importantly, what two things is Cooler really looking for in a partner? So if we just break down Cooler in a nutshell, we saw he has so much control here. Cooler controls full screen, he has control here. He even has a beam that he throws out here, but the safest option he has by far is this. So Cooler is really good at getting this range, and we saw when he's inside, he can mix up with an array of moves, including these stomps, mixing up these stomps, and baiting the opponent to holding back. He has all this stuff. So and one of the biggest things that Cooler has is his damage. So Cooler can deal damage because these are all M. So this is an M button. So while you're playing from afar, Cooler hits you with an M button. So what Cooler really look for in his partners is simple extensions. Very simple extensions he's looking for partners. Because he himself, when he's inside, he doesn't really need help ending strings, because he himself has many ways to do it with just ending in 5S. However, because a lot of his hits come from obviously the mid range here, and obviously a 6H if your opponent was pressing buttons during some sort of stagger. So if we're playing Cooler here, and your opponent decides to press buttons, he has that. See there? That naturally hits opponent when they're trying to press buttons. Even this. Cooler really enjoys partners that allow him to convert. So if you're looking for partners there, we saw Android 17 is really easy there. Whereas with Vegeta Blue, maybe with a bit of practice, it might be possible. He also enjoys in a partner, one other thing he's looking for is assists that allow him to traverse space, more so than block strings. Because as we talked about before, Cooler, block strings wise, he doesn't really have a way to end. If we do reflect on, Cooler himself doesn't really have a way to, unless he does 2-on-4L, he doesn't really have a safe way of ending a block string. Even here, your opponent can hit super dash here. He doesn't really have a way of ending. See, there's always a gap for Cooler. So what he really enjoys is assists that allow him to traverse space. So we see the Android 17 from here, from this range where he goes from this game. 17 doesn't really help that. So maybe you won't use that assist, and we have go Vegeta Blue. This will definitely allow Vegeta to move in. So it didn't allow for conversions, but it did allow him to traverse space. So something you might have to think about when you're picking assists. Let's go for their B assist. So Vegeta, so this is great for allowing him to traverse space. So you see here, Cooler is able to traverse space here, get in and go to town. He can get in himself as well. So Cooler can get in himself and really mix up the opponent. So it's up to your choice really if you want to traverse space or use your system block strings. And conversions. So if we go for do a normal combo. See if I got this. Nah, let me take off. Let's see this. Definitely does work. I'm probably just bad. Oh, probably it's a bit faster. It's faster. Try again. There we go. So there you can convert with that assist there. And then we have Power Blitz. So this doesn't really allow him to traverse space. So this is more for, let's see if it works in combos, you never know. It's a fast assist, so no problem. So yeah, so it works in combos, but it doesn't allow him to traverse space. So that's something you do have to think about, and obviously C assists always work for him. So C assists, just like beam assists, definitely allow him to traverse space, and they definitely allow him to in combos as well. So obviously with a lot of C assists, just with a bit of practice. I've never used this in my life. Let's try again. Is it that fast? There we go. So Cooler can confirm this. So C assists and beam assists are really helpful for something for Cooler. So that's something you just have to kind of think about when you are playing. And let's go on the other side. We have Gogeta. Oh man, Gogeta's A assist is really helpful for Cooler. Obviously in this range, if Cooler is doing this, let's see if this works. Did this work? Oh my god, that works. Yes. So Gogeta's A assist obviously looks like it definitely helps him convert and obviously traverse space, and obviously Broly as well will easily help Cooler combo from this. Let's see if we do it probably. So maybe you gotta be a bit preemptive by doing this. Probably super dash. There we go. So it's also helpful for him for doing that, and obviously in combos, Broly definitely does help. So Kula, because of the range that he controls, he really looks for partners that allow him to extend his combos and the damage and also traverse space. So we saw with these, this is helpful. Now we can spend a lot of time talking about things he looks for in a partner. Here we just talked about 2. But let's talk about fighting against Kula, because right now it seems like he has it all, he controls everything. Now Kula full screen, we talked about how great he was at controlling the opponent. But he has no rule approach outside of 3H and JS. He's playing a very reactive game. He's not really proactive. His proactive options, this beam, are really slow. And here with this, if you're playing a savvy opponent in a game of Dragon Ball, everyone's moving in the air. You're asking your opponent to be crouched on the ground. So it's kind of a big ask for your opponent. So while you're playing this game, if your opponent isn't super dashing and they're just reflecting, Kula's really just waiting for them to make a mistake, especially throwing out 3 haters. He's just waiting for his opponent to kind of throw out things, because obviously you saw with strings, unless his opponent makes mistakes, Kula himself will just keep on attacking. So he's very proactive. So when you're fighting against, reactive. So when you're fighting against him, you can use that to your advantage. And most importantly, if Kula strings go on for too long, outside of 5S, he has no, he can't end it in an action to be safe. So what I mean by that is, aside from doing this, which is obviously -5, and he gives up his pressure, Kula has no way of ending this unless he does the 5S. So unless he goes for this, which you can reflect, DP, which you can reflect, here you can reflect, and obviously when you reflect this is -22. So for a lot of people that don't know, that's -21, so your opponent can punish you. So -23 for that, so your opponent can punish you. So he has no kind of real way of ending his strings outside of just doing 5S. So your opponents can be more liberal in taking chances and taking times to when they want to press. So when you are facing Kula, opponents can be like, is it blocking? So when they are facing Kula, here they can be more liberal to press. So that's why Kula has stuff like this, outranging his opponents. See? Because it's the range there. However, versus some opponents, if the opponent presses an M button, so we do this. Let's do that again from here. See there? Because I'm -5, so you see the difference there. So that's a little mind game or mind trick you can do versus opponents. Because of Kula's range is -5, but here most 5Ls don't hit. But he's -5, so if you stick out a medium that may seem slow, but because of the -5, that 11 frame medium might as well be 6 frames. So that's really Kula. Really, when people play against Kula, you have to really just pick your spots versus when you do certain normals. So that's something just to think about facing against Kula. Now, where's Zula the Great? So we talked about with Zula, damage is his thing. When you're cornered or when he's making you go through these options, Kula really wants you to press. He really wants you to feel like, oh, you know what, I want to press now, and Kula will punish you heavily for it. You saw it there with the 214Ls and 236L and 236M. Sorry, it may be as fast as a 6M, but your opponent really has to worry about those long limbs and getting hit by a random 6H. Because they're pressing buttons. So Kula really enjoys assists that we saw with Vegeta Blue. His A assist was helpful for him to traversing space, but with conversions it was a bit harder, whereas with his B assist it was more helpful, and with the C assist they obviously helped with both. We also saw with 17 his A assist was actually helpful with extensions, and in traversing space not so much. So this is assist you might or may not use him. We saw with Broly's assist, it was very helpful, and especially Gogeta's A assist against Gogeta. It was really helpful with him converting from full screen and traversing space, and also with strings. So we're not saying here that Kula doesn't enjoy block strings, but what we're saying is he has a preference more for traversing space, so that he himself, when he's inside, he's able to do this. He also does enjoy assists that allow him. We saw that he's inside, when we're fighting against Kula, if his strings go on for too long outside of 5S, he has to, if he ends in an action, it's not going to be a safe action. Your opponent can reflect or they can press. So we saw that if you use assists like 17's barrier, for instance, that will be helpful for him in that situation. If you're fighting against Cooler, that is something to think about. But outside of just using 5S, everything he does after 5S has some sort of risk. And full screen, he has no real approach outside of 3H and JS. So he's very, very reactive. He's not really proactive full screen. Yes, he can do 236S the beam, and he can do 214S. But we're talking in a game in Dragon Ball Z where people are flying all over the place. So you're asking your opponent to be grounded. So that's a lot to ask for a lot of opponents. But yeah, I hope this video helps someone. We're trying to delve more into these characters. And just really, we're not just trying to follow lists or how people say characters are strong. We're trying to break down characters in really simple ways that we ourselves can say, okay, this is how a character works. How can I beat them? And also, if you're playing these characters, how can I augment or make this character stronger or better? The weaknesses they have, or help them in their approach, like with Cooler helping his approach, or helping him end strings, or helping him with conversions. These are the kind of things these characters look for. But yeah, I hope this video helps someone. As always, leave a like if you liked it, comment as always, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.